Hello, how are you doing? This is Over and Over and Over Again, and we've got a really, really special show for you tonight. Hello, my name is Richard. Welcome back to my channel, Over and Over and Over Again. As I say, it's a very special show tonight. I've got a really special guest joining me. He was a guy who started off playing for the England schoolboys and ended up in the Arsenal youth system alongside players such as Tony Adams, Paul Merson, David Rocastle, Michael Thomas. Played alongside all those guys in the youth team. Didn't quite work out for him at Arsenal in the end. He ended up going to Wolves and then drifting into semi-professional football. But he has got a book out telling us all about it. His name's Jon Purdie. The book's called Purds, Booze and Football, and it's available to buy now. The links are in the description down below. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome onto the channel Jon Purdie. Well, welcome to the channel, Jon. Really pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's nice to be invited.
No problem at all. Obviously, one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you is because you do have a book out, don't you, at the moment, which it looks really good, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it took me quite some time to put it together, over 2 or 3 years, really. But a journalist some time ago, I went on a football trip and we were sat together and talking, and he said, you really should put something together, just because I've had sort of a unusual kind of career, up and down, and obviously starting at the top with Arsenal and sort of working my way down, and ended up playing non-league and Sunday league football. But the love of football was still there, despite whatever level I was playing at. And it was sort of, when I was playing, it was the days before the big money, so it's kind of a different angle, and it's really to give an insight really for your normal football fan that loves still loves the game, but has got fond memories of sort of the 80s, 90s period, really. Yeah,
I mean, obviously I was aware of you back in the 80s when you was at Arsenal in the youth team and stuff like that. I can remember watching you play, actually. We were quite a similar age, funnily enough, and I just remember you being in the team at the time back in the early 80s. Now, I understand that you actually started at Nottingham Forest, though, is that right?
As a kid, yeah. I went to Forest as a 12-year-old and used to go during the holidays, Easter, Christmas, summer holidays for a couple of weeks. And it was always kind of going to be, because it was the nearest to my hometown, really. Forest were the sort of nearest club, next, and with Leicester as well. They were the two clubs that were kind of, were put the top level. At Forest were the top team with Liverpool, the top team in the country, under Cloughy at the time. So it was always going to be them that I signed for. And then whether it's a good or bad thing, I don't know. I ended up playing for England schoolboys, and things kind of turned a little bit at that point, and my head got turned, and lots of clubs came in, all the top clubs, really. And it was a bit confusing as a 15-year-old lad. My parents weren't used to that sort of thing. Nobody in the family had ever been a pro footballer before, so I got no one really to turn to and talk to, So but I ended up coming down to Arsenal, and with Steve Burtonshaw and Terry Neal, both kind of took a lot of time and interest in me. And I mean, Highbury was such a special place. You couldn't help but be impressed, looking around, and the fact that a club like that, wanted me was really special. So,
did Nottingham Forest sort of offer you a professional contract, or they didn't get that far with them?
Yeah, well, the thing was that because of the interest from England, I sort of held off signing schoolboy forms. So I didn't sign schoolboys forms, which was the normal thing to do at 14. So I wasn't tied to anyone when I played for England, and that meant that, yeah, they still wanted to sign me, but I just wouldn't commit until I'd spoken to other people and had a look around other places. So it kind of fizzled away in the end, and I made my mind up to sign for Arsenal.
You had a good goal scoring record for the England score-wise as well, didn't you? You scored quite a few goals, is that right?
Yeah, I got 5 in 7, so it's quite a good ratio. I got a couple at Wembley, and it all started off really, really well. And that's where all the interest sort of came from. But I'd never played on the left wing before playing for England. I'd always played, up the middle as a number 10 or a striker back in the day. But they unusually at the time played a 4-3-3, which was pretty unheard of. But most teams played 4-4-2, so carried 2 strikers. But he wanted a big centre forward, and I wasn't very big at that time, so I got put out on the wing, and I adjusted pretty well and did okay. But I did get labelled as a winger then, which I didn't really want to be, but kind of it stuck with me most of my career because I could play there, and not a lot of people could. Wanted to or could play wide. So yeah, it was a bittersweet kind of thing, really.
I mean, obviously, like you said, you then obviously chose Arsenal to join. Obviously, at that time, or even now, still a big club. I mean, what was that like then? Obviously, moving down to London and joining Arsenal, it must have been a big kind of change for you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously very exciting, but also, yeah, I come from a relatively small town, so to go to London, and I don't want this to sound arrogant, but it was kind of, I was used to mixing with, Tony Adams and Dave Rocastle, Michael Thomas. They were all in my year, and I'd played with England with Michael Thomas. I knew Tony from the trials, and they were just mates. It wasn't anything special, really. It was just normal at that time. Obviously, looking back now, I realise what an opportunity I had and how special it was, and I probably, didn't make the most of it. But that's life, But at the time of signing, they just become friends. I mean, my best mate was Niall Quinn, and in that year there was Martin Keown, Martin Hayes, Gus Caesar, and then the year below me, Merce played in the year below me. So, we were a very good team, but we never thought of ourselves as anything special. Just a youth team, mates getting on with it. Really, there was quite a few other lads there as well that faded away, like I did. Really.
I mean, obviously back then, a bit similar to now, maybe a lot of those players in that youth team ended up going on to play for the Arsenal first team, and a lot of them, the names that you mentioned there, they're all kind of club legends now, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they're all coming through at the same time. I mean, that must have been a great youth team, a youth system to be involved in at that particular time. The number of great players there were coming through then.
Yeah, I think Steve Burtonshaw did a really good job. He was obviously did the hard yards, watching games and finding players, and then he kind of passed it on then to the coaching team, and that's where my problems came in at Arsenal. But that's all in the book, and it's worth sort of reading about. It's different times now. I think young players, like I would have been treated much differently and much more as an asset because of the money involved in football. Whereas I think back in the day, it was really a sink or swim attitude. You either made it or you didn't. There was always another one on the conveyor belt coming, if you didn't make the best of it. But there was quite a few lads that sort of, I feel, should have done better, and were certainly as good as the lads that went on and played. But for whatever reason, they're moving away from home. It's not the easiest thing to do at 16 years old, and kind of I can only talk from my own experience. And in between turning up for training or matches, and then turning up the next day, there was no real support or guidance or help about adjusting to life in London. So I was going out too much. I was mixing with people, mixing with a lot of the first team lads. Then Charlie, Nicholas, and Graham Ricks and Kenny Sansom. I was going out with them quite regularly. It became normal. It wasn't anything unusual, but it just probably didn't suit what I was actually there to try and achieve.
I mean, did you train with the first team at all, or was you just always with the youths? Because obviously there were some good players at Arsenal then, wasn't there? Tony Woodcock, obviously, like you mentioned, Charlie and Graham Ricks and Kenny Sansom. There were some good players. Did you get to train with them much?
Not really. No, they were kept separate. We'd do pre-season together when we were doing the running and stuff like that, but then we'd split off into our groups. but I was a regular in the reserves, you know, at 16, 17, and I was doing well. But then I did get nobbled at Crystal Palace. I got my knee ligaments done, and I was back to square one when I was, you know, on a bit of a run. I'd had a really good pre-season. Felt the fittest I've ever felt in my life, and was winning all the races and I think I was opening some eyes, and then playing quite regularly in the reserves. And then I had a setback and never really got that opportunity again, which again is kind of, you know, linked into the book. Really, there's reasons behind it. I take, you know, fair part of that blame, but there's also other factors that came into play. So yeah, I think if you know, if people, you know, remember those days and look fondly on it, I think they'd enjoy the book. It's an honest, you know, it's an honest story. It's about, you know, what went wrong and, you know, what could have been done better, really, and also overcoming that. I've not let that, which I look at as a failure at Arsenal, I've not let that define my life. You know, I've been pretty successful outside of football, and I had a good, decent sort of lower league and non-league career, but not really what I felt I was capable of.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, actually getting in the Arsenal system and then playing in that youth team and the reserves with some of those players, I wouldn't call that a failure, really, but I'd love to have had that, you know, to have even got that. So, you know, it's fantastic that you did that. I can remember I was watching you play for the reserves actually a few times back then. So, and you did kind of stand out because you was quite quick on the wing, wasn't you? And, you know, you had a little bit about you, and, you know, obviously you on one wing, Rocky on the other wing. You looked a good kind of a good combination that we had there, you know. And I say a lot of that team did end up obviously playing a lot for the first team as well, didn't they? I mean, in the end then at Arsenal, what sort of happened? Did obviously Don Howe was manager then, wasn't he? Did he maybe pull you aside and say you wasn't going to maybe get the opportunity, or did you decide yourself to leave?
No, it's a bit of a mixture of both. Basically, Tony played in the first team. I don't know if you'd remember. He played in the first team when he was 17.
Yeah.
And he had a bit of a tough baptism of fire against Colin West at Sunderland, who knocked him all over the place, really, in that game. But he'd made the sort of the step and the breakthrough. And Tony was always it was kind of written that he was going to do what he did and get into the team quite early. And obviously he took the opportunity and did really well. And then the other three of us, Michael Thomas and Dave Rocastle and myself, we all got called in to see Don Howe together. And we all got offered the same contracts, basically a 2-year deal, 150 quid a week. And I just felt that, well, I knew the lad's the year older than me. So I was in digs with Gary Campbell, and Gary, you know, I mean, what a player Gary was, and he should have had a really good career if he'd have got the opportunity as well. And, you know, again, he's got his own reasons and thoughts on why it didn't happen. But he told me he got offered a 1 year at 150 and a second year at 175. So I actually felt like I know it's only 25 quid a week, but it was a bit of a, you know, principle thing. Why are they getting offered more than sort of us three? And the other thing was I was the only one paying digs. You know, Mickey and Dave were living at home, and I was paying 50 quid a week digs. So it was quite a big chunk coming out of, you know, of 150 quid to start with. I wasn't much, and then, like, then you have to, I mean, it all sounds daft now looking back, but when you were an apprentice, you got your rail card paid for, your digs paid for, all your travel paid for, and when you're a pro, you don't get any of that. And when I'd worked it out, I was no better than I was, you know, when I was an apprentice. Really, it was like 20 quid a week difference or something. So I just asked for the same as what the lads got the year before. I think I basically annoyed him a bit by sticking up for myself. You know, most kids at 17 just sign it, don't they? And probably that's what I should have done looking back. But I've always been a bit stubborn, so I can't help it. But yeah, so I think I upset him a little bit, and and he just said, "Well, I'll tell you what, take the year, and if you prove yourself, I'll give you the rise the second year." And as happened, I was doing okay, but I mean, you need to read the book really to understand the story, but I didn't get on particularly well with a couple of the coaches that were there. And it came down to a casting vote in the end. 2 people voted for me to stay, get the contract. 2 people voted against me, and Don Howe had the casting vote, and I'd upset him, so he just thought I'd probably be trouble in the future anyway, and let me go. So, you know, that's life. That's how it goes. So there's no point. I mean, the book's all about reflection, but there's no point keep looking back on. Don't get me wrong, I had some sleepless nights over the years about that, and thinking I should have just signed it, but you know, that's just the way it goes, mate. And so life goes on.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously in the end, you moved to Wolves, didn't you? Was there any other clubs interested? Because Wolves were going through a bit of a hard time then, weren't they, with relegations and dropping down the leagues? Was there any other interest, or was that the only club that came in for you?
I went on a pre-season trip to Holland with Notts County before I signed for Wolves, but I didn't really feel comfortable, and I didn't have the greatest tournament either, because at the end of my contract, my first year, I got a bad ankle injury, so I was out for a few weeks, and then they came knocking, and I went on the tour when I probably wasn't fit really to play, but I hadn't got that many options. Barry Fry rang me at Barnet to go there, but I wanted to stay in the league. Barnet were in the conference at that time. I wanted to try and stay in the league. I was only 18, and Wolves kind of came in and offered me first team football really, and I really quite fancied that. I wanted to play I wanted to prove. I'd already played against men I played against men since I was 14 really, and then playing at Arsenal reserves. I really wanted to play, you know, in men's football and prove myself in first team football. And like you say, they were going through a hard time, so they needed young players. They couldn't afford to pay a lot of money, but the opportunity was there to go and do well. And I actually went in and had a really good season, although Wolves, we were a poor team and we got relegated. But personally, I had a good year. But then managers changed, circumstances changed, and you know, it just kept happening. Every manager that signed me got the sack or resigned, and then a new manager would come in, and I wouldn't be his cup of tea. And in the lower leagues, it was kind of more direct football, percentage stuff, and I struggled with it, you know, because I'd always been brought up to play football to feet on the floor, and then it kind of, I was getting a sore neck looking at the ball, going backwards and forwards, you know, and it was a battle really more than anything, and it didn't really suit me. So yeah, that's just how things transpired.
I mean, you were at Wolves for quite a while, wasn't it? About 3 years, I think it was, wasn't it, in the end?
Yeah, I had 3 years. I mean, I had probably two good seasons, and then Graham Turner came in. He got his own ideas, and again, he was another long ball man, but for good reasons, because that got them out the lower leagues. You know, it was kind of what worked. They got Steve Bull up front, who was scoring goals for fun, and it suited the lower leagues to, you know, to get out of there. You couldn't the pitches weren't great. The players probably weren't good enough at the back to play out and stuff like that. So, you know, he did the job that he got brought in to do, which was to get them out the third and fourth divisions. And, you know, he did that successfully. Unfortunately, he actually said when I left that if he was going up into what is the championship now, he'd have kept me to play, but they'd got another year to go before they got there. So he hadn't got the budget to keep me. So I moved on again.
What was it like playing with Steve Bull then? Because he was a hell of a player, wasn't he?
Just an out and out finisher, Bully. You know, he would literally run his grandmother over to score a goal, and he got most people like me. If I'd scored a goal, I was quite happy, but he always wanted to get another one, and there was no kind of satisfying him in that way.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he played for England, didn't he, when he wasn't even playing in the first division at the time, which is quite unusual, wasn't it, even then?
Yeah. Well, that actually, you got the opportunity because when Arsenal won the league against Liverpool, that was on the Friday night, if you remember, and none of those players could get picked. So he got the opportunity to play against Scotland at Hampden.
Yeah, that's right, and he did well, didn't he? He got a few caps after that. He went to the World Cup. He was in the World Cup squad, wasn't he? I think
he was in the '90 World Cup squad, wasn't he? Yeah, and they probably should have thrown him on. A bit more often, really, because he always scored. You know, when he went on, he was a bit different to other players at that level.
Yeah, I mean, obviously after Wolves, you made a sort of a few kind of trips around some of the Football League clubs, didn't you? I know you sort of played for Brentford at one point as well. Obviously, who Arsenal play at the weekend in the first game. What was that like playing for them back then?
Well, I actually enjoyed working under Steve Perryman, but I literally was travelling from Wolverhampton to Brentford. Because my girlfriend was in Wolverhampton at the time, and I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be able to drive and get to Brentford for like 6:30, then going back to bed for a couple of hours, getting up and going train. It just wasn't, you know, sustainable really. And I lived in a flat with a fella called Andy Feely, who was one of the biggest characters I've ever met in football. Probably not the way to sort of make it in football is to live with Andy Feely, but you know, it was fun, but at the same time didn't really help me have a good career. But it was enjoyable working for Steve Perryman. I enjoyed that. He always trained with the ball. Everything was good, you know, good work really, football wise. It was hard work, but always with the ball involved. You know, you weren't slogging your guts out without seeing a ball. So I enjoyed that. But I didn't. The honest truth is, I was about to get married. I wanted to settle, and I kind of made the decision to come out of pro football. I didn't like it, if I'm honest, because I was just getting 1-year contracts, getting messed about, getting in. You know, a manager would sign me, then leave, and it was just like always insecure. So I never knew from 1 year to the next where I'd be, or if I was going to be where I'd be living, and I didn't like it. So I came out, went in the conference. I literally dropped £25 a week from being full time to playing in the conference, and then started getting a career in sales, which has done me well really. Because when a lot of my peers were coming out of football at 33, 34, 35, not knowing what to do, I'd already got a 10-year head start on them. So and also it hits a lot of footballers hard when they can't play anymore. Whereas I kind of gently got weaned off it by going semi-pro, and I kind of became more in control of what my life and what I was doing, and had more choices about what I wanted to do. And I really didn't want to. I mean, when I played for Kidderminster and we had a great cup run, we got to the 5th round against West Ham, and that there was a little bit of, you know, rumours going about that I might get back in. Wickham were interested. Martin O'Neill was manager of Wickham, but there really was no point me going back into league football to get paid, you know, less than what I was earning with my football and my sales job anyway. So, and I was quite happy, settled in an area, and you know, that's what my life became, was all about enjoying my football rather than the pressure of performing, which professional football is. You know, it's not all, at the end of the day, you're there, you get picked to do a job and to win a football match. It's not about enjoying yourself. I mean, I go back to when I started at Arsenal. I love taking people on and running, and I still get nothing more pleasurable than nutmegging someone, you know. But one of the coaches, Tommy Coleman, who was my youth team manager, pulled me once and just said, "Why don't you just cross the ball, put it in the box, you know, and give us a chance to score?" I'm just like, well, it's not much fun, that, you know. where's the challenge in that? You know, I like taking people on, and I think that's what crowds like to see, you know, as well. But I think at that time in football, it was all became a bit, you know, a bit too organised and a bit defensive, and you know, yeah, it didn't really rock my boat, really, to be honest with you. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the 80s were, as you sort of mentioned before, about long ball tactics and that kind of stuff, wasn't it? A lot of that, even in the first division at that time. So, you know, maybe your sort of style would have maybe been more suited to perhaps modern football, you know, the more passing style and, you know, slower build up, and, you know, you probably would have been allowed a few more nutmegs, wouldn't you, perhaps now?
Yeah, and the pitches are so much better, you know. I mean, I remember Highbury was kind of, you know, it was I would say 70% sand. You know, it was kind of real hard work. It was during winter, and they used to spray it green, you know, so it looked like grass from the stands, but it was like literally sand. Yeah, it was like difficult to, you know, to run on it, never mind play on it.
Yeah, I can remember the pitch not being that great actually at Highbury, and then sort of later on they really improved it, didn't they? By the time Arsenal left Highbury, it was one of the best pitches in the league, wasn't it? They did a lot of work.
Well, I think the technology moved on a lot, didn't it? In, you know, in that with the, you know, they mix it, don't they, with AstroTurf and real grass, and you know they've got it sorted, and the drainage seems to be, you know, much better than it ever was. So yeah, I played yesterday on one of these new 4G pitches. It was just like, you know, a carpet, and you never get a bad bounce, do you, or anything. It's kind of it like makes it much easier to play on.
Yeah, it does, and I guess that's probably why it is more of a technical game now, isn't it? I suppose because it helps with the surfaces that they're playing on. I mean, I say in your day, some of those pitches were terrible, so you wouldn't have had to pass the ball as much as you can now. I suppose it had to be long ball, perhaps more. You did mention Kidderminster Harriers there. Obviously, we can't talk about Kidderminster Harriers without that goal you scored against Birmingham in the FA Cup. I mean, that must have been a great moment, mustn't it, for you?
It was, and not only personally, but for the team and for the fans and everybody that was involved in the club. It was such a lovely non-league club, well run, very professional. Sorry, I had a call. But very professionally run. Everything was laid on for us, but he treated us as men as well. He had respect for us, and he was one of the few that said he wanted to be called Graham, like the manager Graham Horner, not boss or gaffer or anything like that. He said, you're all men. Just don't cross the line. He said, if you cross the line, I'll let you know, but I'll give you respect and repay me for it. So it was great to be involved in. But the backstory of that was when I left Wolves, I went to Oxford, and I went through. Mark Lawrenson signed me at Oxford, and I got on well with Mark. But then he went over Dean Saunders, going to Derby for no money because Robert Maxwell was the chairman of both clubs, so that they just literally transferred him. So he lost his best striker and got no money. So he resigned. And then Brian Horton took over, and I didn't really get on with him very well because, again, the same sort of thing. He wanted a different style of football, which is his prerogative, but it wasn't any good to me. But it just transpired that we drew Man United in the FA Cup 4th round away. He got an injury to Martin Foyle, who was his number one striker, and then Dave Leeworthy, who was his backup, who played with me and generally in the reserves. He fell out and not with Brian Horton on the Friday morning in training, and stormed off and told him where to stick his club. And I was the only forward left, and I ended up playing at Old Trafford in front of like a full house. And I wasn't expecting to play like at all. I'd been sort of bombed out really, and I just froze on the day. It was too much for me. I was 21. I'd been playing in the reserves, and I was a bit disillusioned with the whole thing, to be honest. And then I got plucked out and played against Paul McGrath and Steve Bruce, and Brian Robson and Remy Moses were in front of me. And I played up front of my own, and really, the only kick I got was off Brian Robson. He kicked me up in the end the first time I got the ball. So that game, I was really determined that I wouldn't let myself down. I had a good game, and obviously the goal topped it all off really to get the winner for the club.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's probably. Would you say that was a highlight of your career, or not? Maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would. Obviously, playing for England at Wembley. Well, I was only a kid, but as a pro or a semi-pro, yeah, we did really well. I mean, we lost to West Ham in the next round 1-0 at Agborough it was a real stalemate. They were quite happy to take us back to Upton Park. We'd have been happy to go there. And Lee Chapman nodded one in. Our keeper came out, didn't get there, and it dropped in the net. So we were out, unfortunately. But we were proud of our run, and we won the league as well. We won the conference that year, so we had a good team. Yeah,
I mean, Lee Chapman, he would have been at Arsenal when you were there, wouldn't he? Did you know him then, or not really?
Yeah. It's funny because I didn't know Lee very well. I think he was quite a little bit when he came. I think it was from Stoke, wasn't it? He signed for Arsenal.
Yeah.
But he didn't really break through. He was still quite young. He looked a bit timid and a little bit out of his comfort zone when he came to Arsenal. He was a bit of a loner as well. And I don't think he lasted that long. But then he did well at Leeds. And I actually dropped out of football initially the first year. I got asked to go to Leeds on trial the year they won the league in '92. So I went on trial for a few days there under the understanding I'd train with the first team and either be good enough or not, because I didn't really want to waste their time or mine really. And I saw Lee again there, and Chris White and John Lukic. They're all there, so I reconvened with them. But true to form, I went there and I trained with the reserves. So I lasted 3 days and said I'm going home and left them to it because I wanted to go. If I was going to go, I wanted to show I was either good enough or not. I didn't see the point in playing. I don't want to play. I was 24, so it's a bit pointless playing in the reserves. So,
yeah, they had a good team then, Leeds as well, didn't they? Obviously, all those ex-Arsenal players, but they had a Gordon Strachan and people like that. They were a great side. Like you said, they won the league as well.
Yeah, they won the league that year, didn't they? As a one-off, I think. So, yeah, it was good. It was a good experience anyway. It's all life experience, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, not many people get the opportunity, do they, to do that either? So, you know, another great thing that you've achieved. I mean, obviously playing semi-professional. I mean, what was the sort of the difference in that? Really, obviously, you wouldn't have been training so regularly or anything like that, would you? Was that the main difference, really?
Yeah, but you know, when you're a pro footballer, you tend to train hard about 3 days a week. Have a midweek day off, and then Fridays you don't do a lot because you're building up to the match on a Saturday. So for my mind, we train twice a week, but we train hard twice a week. And then I used to keep myself ticking over during the week anyway. You know, I've got a gym at home and stuff, and go for a run, you know, on days that we haven't got a match and stuff like that. So I didn't feel there was that much difference fitness. I think the pre-season's a lot harder because you're training twice a day. You get fitter, you know, at that point. But then when the season kicks in, it kind of becomes a little bit more similar, really, in your training regimes. And it's all about being match fit. You know, in our cup run that we had at Kiddie, we never felt like we were struggling fitness-wise. We played against, obviously, Birmingham and Preston and then West Ham. And it wasn't a fitness thing, you know, maybe West Ham had a bit more quality, but you would expect that in a Premier League team against a conference team. So, yeah, it's not that much different, really, to be honest.
Obviously, there's a lot of ex-professionals that play in the semi-pro game as well, don't they? So there's a lot of good players there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, and you know, there used to be quite a few that went from semi-pro into league football. I don't know if it happens quite so much anymore. That, you know, with the foreign influx and that, there's limited places for English footballers, isn't there, to get an opportunity? Obviously, Jamie Vardy being the exception, but there ain't many of him about.
No, but it just goes to show, doesn't it? There is a lot of quality players that play at that level, even now, that could potentially do a job in the Premier League. I mean, you know, no one would have probably thought Jamie Vardy would go on and have the career he had a few years ago when he was playing for, was it Stalybridge Celtic, wasn't it? He was at originally.
Well, loads of, he went through a little bit of non-league, didn't he, for quite a few years before making it. But yeah, I think it's the same as any walk of life, really. It's about opportunity, isn't it? If you don't get the opportunity, you can't prove yourself either for right or wrong, you know. And in any walk of life, people tend to be a little bit wary of giving young people a chance, don't they? You know, and whether that's right or not, I'm not so sure. I think, you know, unless you throw them in and have a look, you won't ever know. And I think it's a bit unfair sometimes. They don't get a chance, and they've signed someone from abroad who may not be any better. You know, it's just because they feel they're 5 years older and kind of more reliable, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose with the money in football now as well, there's a bit more pressure, isn't there, maybe on the managers and stuff to get the right players in, and it's more of a risk maybe with these sort of younger players playing maybe semi-pro than maybe there used to be, you know, a few years ago when there wasn't the money in the game. I mean, do you think that's been a negative for football overall then? Obviously, because you played at a time when the money wasn't really that great. I mean, you said what your wages were and stuff like that, you know, that wasn't much more than what, you know, I'd have been getting at the time working. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's made them a little bit. I mean, we used to mix with the fans, and, you know, all through my career, we always had a couple of pints after the match and talked to them about the game. And, you know, that was part of the, you know, the feel good thing about being involved with a football club, that you were touchable. You know, they were kind of just normal blokes. I mean, you look at Graham Ricks, Kenny Sansom, Tony Woodcock, Paul Mariner. They were just normal fellas that were good. You know, they were just actually better at football than most people. But there was no like arrogance or thought that they were any better than anybody else. It was just, that's how we looked at it. Well, we're lucky, you know, we're getting paid to play football, but it's not a case of like now you can't even they don't even want to talk to you, do they, or acknowledge you or anything. So it's kind of, it's just a different game completely for me, you know. I just think it's very, very sad. Don't get me wrong, if Don Howard had put that contract in front of me and it was 100 grand a week, I'd have probably snapped his hand off, you know, but it's a bit different when it's 150 quid.
Yeah, no, and it is, like you said, it is a different game now, isn't it, really? And I agree. I don't think it's as much fun, maybe, certainly from a fan's perspective as well. And, you know, I think it's the players now, they're in their own little bubbles, aren't they? And they're not the same as it was. You said, we used to see the players sometimes. Tony Adams used to live quite near me. Used to bump into him quite a lot. Always happy to have a chat. And you wouldn't get that now, would you? They live in big mansions in the middle of nowhere, with security guards on the gates and stuff like that, don't they? So you can't get anywhere near them, which is a shame, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, the fans are the same. The fans still, feel the same about the club, and it's just a shame that it's all changed from that side, really, which hasn't really helped. I mean, from your point of view, did you sort of get into coaching? I know you sort of did a bit of coaching at lower levels, didn't you? You never thought of maybe going up higher, getting into coaching up that way, or that wasn't really something that appealed to you?
I didn't really. I mean, I love coaching, but I don't really have the drive and the desire to do it in football. And it's no different to being a player. You get a year's contract. You could be an academy coach, and then the academy, the first team manager gets the sack or leaves, the whole lot go, and then you're out of work again. And it's just, for me, it was just football was just too insecure to suit me. I like a little bit of stability and know what I'm doing. Obviously no one can see too far ahead, but football just proved over and over again that you're at the whim of somebody else's decision all the time. And I like being self-employed and kind of being in control of my own destiny a little bit, rather than always being in someone else's hands. But I love coaching kids, under 18 age. I love that, and trying to help them, but only at a sort of local level, really. And and I just want them to enjoy the game and stick and continue to play for social reasons. Really, I think it's good for them to get young kids, get them off the Xbox and get them off, all those sort of things. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's really important, especially these days. When everybody's health is kind of so important, isn't it? At the focus of everybody's mind. See, you've coached with Eddie McGoldrick. Obviously, he used to play for Arsenal as well, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, Eddie comes from Corby, the same as me. Our paths sort of went in different directions. Eddie came into football quite late. Not that he wasn't playing, but he was playing at sort of non-league level. And then he worked his way up when I was going the other way. Eddie made absolutely the best of his ability, which he has to be very proud of. And we've become sort of mates in the last few months, got to know each other a bit better. And he's got an academy that's linked to Crystal Palace. It's a college kind of, one of these college schemes. But he's got a bit of a link to Palace because of his history there. But it's just nice to help the kids, and kind of I'm a bit different to Eddie. Eddie's quite serious about it all, and I'm kind of a bit more realistic with the boys. So it works quite well. We've got a bit of a balance going on.
Yeah, I mean, what else are you doing now then? Obviously, outside of football.
Yeah, I'm actually what's called an estate planner. So I work for a solicitor's practice in the Midlands, and I do sort of, it's a bit of a miserable subject, but I do wills and lasting powers of attorney. And the biggest thing that I do is, when people go into care as they get older, I protect their properties from being taken to pay for that care. So get them into trust for them so that they don't lose their homes at the end of life. So it's quite rewarding. I make a decent living at it, but it's rewarding in helping people as well. I enjoy it.
Yeah, a bit different to being a professional footballer, isn't it?
Yeah. But again, it's kind of it's more, it's more stable. It suits me, and I quite enjoy it. I certainly make a lot more money than I did when I was playing football. So that's quite nice too.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, obviously going back to the book then, I mean, what kind of made you kind of start doing that then? Was it just, you felt as though there was a story worth telling, or was it more to it than that?
No, I think I did think there was a story worth telling, but it's also, I want to leave something for my kids and, eventually grandkids and future generations, because I know nothing about my family, like my granddad or my great granddad, or don't know what their lives are about or what they did, and I think it's worth passing down and having something to for the future generations to go, God, what an idiot he was, you know. So you know, and it's quite an enjoyable book. There's a lot of humour in there, but there's a lot of heart-wrenching stuff as well, because that's what a football journey is like. You know, it's not all roses generally. You know, the daft thing for me, what, you know, when I look back and look at Martin Hayes and Paul Merson, obviously went on and did well for Arsenal. They were both. Merce played up the middle as a kid, and he couldn't kick it with his left foot, could he? But he ended up playing on the left wing. And then Martin Hayes was exactly the same. He was a right winger. He ended up playing on the left wing, and it was just like, that's where I should have been. You know what I mean? But it just didn't happen. So it's just, and then so it's just life, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, do you keep in contact with anyone from the Arsenal sort of team that you played with still?
No, I mean, I spoke to Tony a couple of months ago because I was looking for a charity to leave a part, you know, percentage of the book I wanted to put towards charity, and I thought about his charity, but in the end, my ex-wife has recovered from breast cancer, and a good friend of mine lost his wife when she was 33 to breast cancer. So we're basically doing book launch nights, and a percentage of the. Basically, I'm trying to get my money back for the book first that I've laid out, but once that's done, then I'll put a percentage towards the charity. And we're going to raise money for breast cancer I've got about four events up here to sort of launch the book and have a good night as well. It's not just about a book, but kind of having a bit of live music, and then he's going to do some auctions and, you know, different things to just raise a little bit of money for breast cancer as well. So yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, obviously, you know, this charity is, you know, more about Arsenal than anything else, really. And obviously, you've got links to Arsenal. Do you still watch Arsenal much now, or are you more? It Wolves more your club, would you say?
Yeah, well, you know, I am more. Arsenal and Wolves are kind of the two that I follow. My dad was always an Arsenal fan, which probably helped sort of make a decision for me when I was younger. But and obviously I followed it quite closely when the lads were playing. I should have said I've reconnected with Michael Thomas through LinkedIn as well, and he put a nice little book. He put a nice testimonial in my book, which was good of him to do. But obviously, really sad about David Rocastle, what happened to him, and you know, I felt really, really bad about that. He was a lovely lad, you know, one of the nicest kids. But he had a bit of steel on him when he crossed the white line to play. You know, not only was he skillful, but he could put his foot in a bit as well. He wasn't frightened of anything. We actually played together. Me and Dave used to be similar sort of speed, so we always trained together and did our shuttle runs and sprints, and there wasn't much in it ever. It was always a bit of a competition between us. And then at one point we both played centre midfield together. We played together. He used to win the ball for me and give it to me so I could pass it. And he was like a real Rottweiler in the middle of the park, chasing people down and getting stuck in, you know. So he could have played in there as well, but obviously he got his opportunity wide, which a lot of young lads do, don't they? They get that chance wide to start with, and then as they get more experience, move more central, which I think he probably would have done if he'd hung around long enough, or they'd let him stay longer.
Yeah, I mean, he did when George Graham actually played a sort of 5 at the back and 3 in midfield. He did sort of move more in field a bit more, didn't he, for a while in that system? But yeah, he could have played there. I think he had all the attributes, didn't he? Strength and power, and he could win the ball. So yeah, he could have probably had a career in that position as well, really. But yeah, you're right. It's a shame what happened to him, because, like you said, he was a great guy and a great player as well, wasn't he? I mean, it must have been great to have played with him for so long, actually, when you were kids. Yeah,
but like I say, I'd left. None of them had really. Only Tony had played in the first team, so I couldn't see what was coming. And he was just a mate, just a nice lad that we had a laugh with and kind of competed in training. And, he was just one of the boys, really. So, but it's great that they all went on and did well. I'm not knocking any of it at all. It's just circumstance, and you need a break, don't you? You need someone to back you as a player, and and you just have to hang.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
just have to hang around a little bit, which looking back, I should have just signed the contract. You never know. Don Howe would have been sacked and, things change. So, well, that's life,
How do you think you would have got on under George Graham then? Because obviously he came in after Don, didn't he? And sort of reformed the club, really, didn't he? And obviously a lot of your mates got to play quite regularly, like the young players, didn't he, George?
Well, this is it. I think he gave them opportunity, didn't he? So that's all
Mm.
you want. As a young player, you just want the opportunity. And if he put up with Mercy, he put up with me, I think.
Well, yeah, quite possibly. I mean, funny enough, the sort of left wing position. I mean, until he signed Brian Marwood,
Yeah,
there wasn't really a regular player in that position, was there? But I know Martin Hayes played there, but like you said, he was right-footed, wasn't he? And always wanted
yeah,
to cut inside. And
yeah,
maybe there would have been an opportunity there for you in that side, wouldn't there? Possibly.
yeah. Can we not talk about it anymore? It's like
No, I understand. I
a
mean,
long time ago. Yeah.
do you still watch Arsenal now much?
Yeah, I watch them. If it's on the telly, but I can't get a ticket. It's difficult to get tickets for anywhere, isn't it? So, and I've got no contacts there or any sort of in. I mean, I was hoping I might be able to get hold of someone to try and get the book in the club shop or something, but I've got no idea who to talk to or got nobody with any influence. So it's very unlikely that will happen.
I mean, Arsenal generally, I mean, I don't know what things like now, but they've always kind of looked after their ex-players, haven't they? So I'm sure that, there'd be somebody at the club who you could maybe, reach out to and would maybe help on that side of it for you, I would have thought. I don't see why that couldn't happen, but I know it's difficult these days to get anywhere,
Yeah,
isn't it? There's a barrier around everything that it didn't used to be. I mean, what do you make of the way Arsenal have been playing in the last sort of year or two? Obviously, things aren't going quite as well, are they, as maybe they should be?
It's just so many changes, isn't there? It's like constant. I don't know about you. You might know a lot better than me, but I can't name the first 11 any week. I don't know who's going to be playing, who isn't, who's bringing in. There just doesn't seem to be that stability, does it? That there used to be, where you could actually name the team before, before the kickoff. It's like, yeah, I can't pronounce most of them anyway. So it's, it's just a different era completely, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure about this passing the ball in the 6-yard box to your own, to your centre halves, and then they pass it around, and then it goes back to the keeper, and he wellies it up front. It's like you could have done that 10 minutes ago,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, yeah, I like to see good football, but I just think it's been taken to the end degree, really, where it's all about possession rather than trying to score goals. I think that's been the biggest change in football for me. Is when we used to play, we used to want to go and outscore the opposition, but now it just seems to be keep the ball, and I mean, it was a bit like that. They never wanted you to give the ball away, but it just seems that there's no real, I don't know, desire to score. It's all about just passing and, and again, it's very rare to see somebody. I mean, obviously Sakho's one that can take people on. It's nice to see a player, and I think that's why people love him, is because he's prepared to have a go and run at people. Same as Grealish, they're the ones that fans like to watch, because they're the ones that do things that most people can't. Everybody can run up and down and pass it 10 yards, and obviously they're good at doing it, but it's like not that eye-catching or exciting, is it? So.
No, you're right. I mean, obviously, talking about sort of the England guys. I mean, what did you make of the Euros? Did you enjoy it? Obviously, England did well in the end, didn't we? Unfortunate not to maybe lift the trophy in the end.
Yeah, definitely. No, they had a really good tournament. I think we were quite lucky with the draw. I don't think we really got a good team until the final, if I'm honest. But that was fortuitous. But you still have to win those games and get through, which he did a good job of doing. Again, it was all a bit functional for me. I think he's got players in the team that could have been more exciting. The team could have been a lot more exciting to watch. But it's ultimately about winning games, isn't it? At that level, they're all about progressing. It's his job that's on the line at the end of the day. But you get a different person with the players he's got at his disposal. It might have been, you don't know, do you? It's like one of them. If they'd have gone for it, they might have won games more comfortably. If they'd have gone for it, they might have got picked off and got knocked out. So, he did a good job. That's all you can say. But I think it could have been a lot more exciting to watch at times. That's all. I don't think we needed 2 holding midfield players in a lot of the games, but
No,
yeah, we're all critics, aren't we? It's not our job that's on the line, so it's kind of,
no, that's true. I mean, in the final, I just felt, we got that early goal, and instead of really going on and pushing and trying to get a second and a third and killing it off, we kind of almost sat back, didn't we? And I think that's what got us in the end, because you could see Italy scoring at some point later on, and we didn't take advantage of the early goal, did we? Really, which was a bit frustrating. But anyway,
now we invited them on, didn't we? Really, and I think if you do that in football, it's only one mistake away from a goal. I mean, it's no different from back in our day when the more ball that's in your box, the more chance they've got of scoring. You've got to get the ball into their half and keep it in their half. They're not going to score then. So attack's the best form of defence for me. If you're up in their half, they're not going to score. But we didn't. We sat in and sort of invited them on and hoped for the best, I think, a little bit. And then the penalty thing was just a debacle. As soon as that happened, I was like, oh, here we go. And I don't get they're putting the two lads on late to take penalties when they've not even got a sweat on, have they? And yeah, taking penalties in training's far different to when the pressure's on, and you've got to tuck it away. I mean, the one lad hardly reached, did he? Sancho has hardly reached the goals. It was a bag of nerves. So.
Yeah, I mean it was strange that some of the penalty takers. I mean, I felt really sorry for Bukayo Saka taking the 5th one as well. I mean, the youngest player in the squad having to take the most important penalty. I thought that was, a strange decision. Unfortunately, he couldn't score. But even if he'd scored, it would have only took it into sudden death, wouldn't it? And who would have stepped up after that? I don't know. It was
apparently the story is that he got his 5 penalty takers before the game kicked off. So Grealish wanted one, I think, and I don't know who else, but he'd already decided he was taking the first 5, so he made the substitutions for the penalties. I don't know. It seemed odd.
Yeah, it did. I mean, Grealish should have been one of the ones, surely. If he wouldn't been confident taking a penalty, then I don't know who would really. But anyway, I guess it's in the past now. It's gone, and unfortunately, we couldn't win a trophy, which would have been nice. But anyway, I suppose it's nice to see England competing again, isn't it, at major tournaments? Because we got to the semi-final, the World Cup, and now we've got to the final. So maybe I agree with you. The football isn't always the most exciting to watch, is it? It's quite timid, maybe. Like you said, possession football.
Cautious,
it is, and it's not great to watch. But I suppose, like you said, it's a results business, and we seem to be getting the good results when it matters. We're doing well in the tournaments, aren't we? So maybe the next World Cup, who knows? Maybe we'll get it right and go all the way, which would be nice, wouldn't it?
We've definitely got a good crop of players, haven't we? I mean, he's got a good selection there to choose from. I mean, it would be difficult to pick if you were given the job, it'd be who'd you leave out, really, and what system you're going to play and all that sort of thing. So, let's just hope it carries on and we enjoy the success we've had in the last 2 tournaments. It's been good. Yeah, considering we go back to like Graham Taylor, who didn't qualify. We've been knocked out early a lot, haven't we? And kind of so over the years, so it is a lot more positive. Yeah,
it is. To string 2 good tournaments together in a row is unusual for England. So I suppose we should be grateful that we've managed to experience that. I mean, also I want to obviously touch on Wolves a little bit. Like you said, maybe they're sort of one of your teams as well. You played the most games for them in the league, certainly. I mean, obviously they've done well, haven't they? Last 3 or 4 years, got back in the Premier League and done well, haven't they? Got into Europe as well last year.
Yeah, I was quite surprised they sort of let Nuno go. At the end of last year, it's. I think last year with the fans not being in the ground and COVID and all that sort of thing, I think it's a bit of a write-off year, and I think he certainly deserved another year. But, I think these people that run football clubs these days don't really know football. They just look at numbers and position where they finished the year before and when they finished this year. They looked at it, he's had 2 7ths and then a 12th or 13th and basically said that's not good enough. We want progression. But he lost his best striker. He lost half the team most of the year, and they haven't got the biggest squad, which may be down to him anyway. But how do you sign 2 world-class strikers if one's not going to play? So it's always difficult. But it'll be interesting this year. The guys have got a different outlook, I think. The new fella, so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how Nuno does at Tottenham with. with that group of players that, you know, always never seem to quite achieve anything, do they? So
no, and long may that continue. I mean, obviously, did you get much to Molyneux then these days? Or obviously, I know obviously over the last year you wouldn't have been able to, but I mean, did you still get to watch Wolves much?
I can go, yeah. I've got some good friends who are sort of lifelong Wolves fans, so I sometimes go along with them to the match, or I've got some mates who go to every game. But I'm not really that. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like last Saturday, rather than watch Chelsea and Man City and Leicester, I watched the British Lions, you know, playing rugby. So that's I quite like I like the physical aspect of rugby. You know, people get stuck in and they're men, aren't they? They leave the referee alone, all that sort of thing, like it used to be. I just like football used to be. I think it's gone out of the game quite a lot now. There's no physical aspect to it at all. A lot of them are diving around, cheating, and you know, the ref seems to get dog's abuse for everything off everybody, and it's just like, Christ, just go and win the game without getting on at the ref. Leave him alone, but they don't. So yeah, but I still love football. It's in my blood. But actually going to a match, I prefer going to non-league, lower league football, just because for me it's more honest, and I can go and have a beer with the lads after the game and talk, and you know, it's more of a social thing rather than, you know, just going to. I think you've really got to have it in your blood, a club like that, you know, to follow a club through thick and thin. And I haven't really got that, so it's not a passion for me to go and watch one team play regular. I go for the social aspect, but really that's the honest truth.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think it's not half as much fun going to the games as it used to be anyway. So I kind of starting to feel a bit the same, actually. I mean, I watch it. Obviously, I watch Arsenal because once you've committed so much of your life to it, I guess you can't just stop, can you? But I mean, it's certainly nowhere near. Yeah, it's nowhere near as much fun as it used to be, and that's a shame, really, because it's a big part of people's lives, isn't it? Football, and
absolutely, yeah.
And unfortunately, it's maybe been watered down a little bit too much, perhaps now, but it's not going to change, is it? I suppose it's just a shame. But you know, it's always good to obviously to chat to guys like yourselves who maybe played in an era and at a time when it was maybe better. Perhaps people might say the football's better now, the quality of the players is better, but I don't know if it is really. It's changed, and it's nowhere near as real. I don't think. You know, in your day, it was real, wasn't it?
And I think like fans love to see people take people on, love to see a good tackle, you know, a bit of a physical challenge. That side of it's all really gone. The players are a little bit untouchable now. I mean, I talk to a lot of Wolves fans, and that they still go the days in the 3rd and 4th divisions were the best, you know, because we could go to Torquay and Blackpool and Southend and all these places and have a great weekend away, watch the football. The football was, like they say to me, you lot were all crap, but but the weekend was great, kind of thing, you know. And it was, and now you can't really. It's not the same, is it? You can't really. They just feel it's totally different. It costs so much more money, comparatively, you know. And I don't know. My big thing is I'm not sure how much the clubs really appreciate the fans. You know, it just seems that they get taken advantage of an awful lot of, and I think it's totally wrong. You know, without the fans, the clubs will die. You know, nobody wants to watch football with no fans in there. It's what it's all about. The players buzz off it. The fans love it, don't they? A bit of rivalry and kind of, you know, going out for the day and ending up on a Sunday going, how did we get on? I can't remember. You know,
exactly. And you know, we've had the last year with no fans in the stadium for most of last season. You can see the difference that it made to the spectacle of the game. It was completely different, wasn't it? And it was nowhere near as exciting to watch. You know, they were putting the crowd noise on, and it's just not right, is it? You know, empty stands and what we saw, you know, from the Euros and what we've seen a little bit in pre-season is, you know, when a goal goes in, you've got fans cheering and celebrating, and that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about the fans, and I don't think clubs do appreciate. I think you're right, and if this year hasn't made them appreciate fans, I don't know what ever will, because not having them there, surely that would have woke them up, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but they still continue to put prices up, don't they, for season tickets and whatever. You don't get anything back, I don't think, which is not right. If only they'd do away with this VAR on every decision as well, because you can celebrate a goal, and then the other set of fans are celebrating that it isn't a goal, and they get the lift, don't they, rather than the team that's tried to score a goal. It's just, it's better when the ref made a decision for right or wrong, you get on with it. I agree with the goal line technology. But apart from that, I just think they should just crack on. These offsides by a fingernail. Where's the advantage to the attacker there? It should all be for the advantage of the attacker rather than trying to stop people scoring. But oh well, what do I know?
It always used to be, didn't it? The offside rule was always to favour the attacking team. So if there was a slight doubt, you would go with the attacker, wouldn't you? Now, if there's a slight doubt, if it's a fingernail, it goes to the defensive team, which is wrong, isn't it? It should be about trying to score goals and get more goals into the game and more excitement. But maybe they'll change it. I don't know. But I think VAR is here to stay, unfortunately. I think we're just going to have to put up with it. And, to be fair, though, in the Euro, it actually didn't work too badly, did it, really? It just seems to be in the Premier League where they've completely messed it up. I don't know why.
True. But the offside thing, I think there should, unless there's clear daylight, then it should be on. If there's clear daylight between the two players, then offside. But if the attacker's got anything across a defender or whatever in his body, but there's no daylight, then give the advantage to the attacker. Because I don't think many of them play offside rule anymore. It's just happens. It's just circumstance. So it's not like Tony Adams stepping up with his arm up, is it? And the back four all sort of coming up. Those days have gone. So I don't know.
I think if there's any doubt, if there's an offside and there's any doubt, they should just give it to the attacking team always, because that's what football's about. We all want to see goals, don't we? We don't want to see goals constantly disallowed for very, very marginal decisions that could have gone either way. Just let the goal stand, because that's what football's about, isn't it? We all want to see more goals and more excitement. And I don't know. Let's hope that they tweak it slightly, because I think it's here to stay, unfortunately.
Personally, I think you should be in charge of UEFA and FIFA. Get you the job.
I wouldn't mind doing that, actually. I don't know how popular I'd be, but anyway.
you get paid well, good bungs and all that. So
I'm sure it'd be a good job to have. I'm sure it would. But, I don't know whether or not they'd appreciate my input. Perhaps not. But anyway. Obviously, just before you go, John, just give your book another plug and where people can get it from as well. Is it readily available is it just online, or can you buy it in the shop as well?
It's basically it is on Amazon, and it's in Waterstones. But the easiest way, I do it directly, just on a website. It's www.jonpurdie.co.uk. My name's spelt Jon and Purdie. So just search that and it will pop up. It's easy to get. It's only a tenner plus postage and packaging, so it's not going to break the bank. And if you do love football, then you'll enjoy it. It's just a story of ups and downs, and people are met along the way. Some funny stories with Kenny Sansom, Paul Mariner, Tony, all of them really. So there's a lot in there for Arsenal fans to enjoy.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I'll put a link in the video at the bottom in the description, so people can click on the link to go straight there, and hopefully they'll enjoy the book as well, because it does sound like it's a lot of fun. And I say it in the days when maybe football was proper football, wasn't it? As opposed to what we get these days, maybe. So it's definitely worth picking up the book. And
it is literally more about what goes on behind the scenes rather than on the pitch itself. It's not a boring, in the 55th minute I did this, and it's not about that. It's kind of about the funny stories and nights out and dressing room stuff, and I think people like to hear that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, when you think these days, you've got these documentaries on Netflix, haven't you, to go behind the scenes at the football clubs, and they're really popular, aren't they? So obviously people do enjoy that. I know I do. So it's, a book about that kind of side of football is going to be probably a lot more interesting than, like you said, just literally a recollection of all the games. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some of your good moments on the pitch as well, like the goal against Birmingham, I would imagine, is in there, isn't it?
Of course, there's obviously some references and what have you, but the core of the book is about overcoming disappointment, the funny stories, and life not being too bad after all. Not living up to what I should have done or could have done, but not letting that define my life. Really is kind of the crux of it, I suppose.
And coming out the other side as you have when you're here, and you're enjoying life as well now, which is the main thing, isn't it? That's what it's all about at the end of the day, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And I've got two good lads, through it. And I wouldn't have the same lads, would I, if I'd have come through at Arsenal? So, you've got to look at positives in life. So, for me, it hasn't turned out too bad, and I certainly wouldn't swap with some of them that did a lot better than me, which is also kind of very sad. But that we're all on our different journey, and we're taking our path, aren't we? And it's about sort of overcoming obstacles. I think everybody's the same in life, football or not. And everybody has problems and difficulties, and and at times it does get you down, and you don't know your next way forward. But you've got to find that strength to keep going, and if you need help, find it. And not be too proud to ask for help from people. And and if someone isn't sort of nice enough to offer help, or they find you weak for that, then it's their problem, really, not yours. They're not. For me, I just want to surround myself with good people, and have people around you that you kind of know are all pulling in the right direction, and trying to get through this life as best we can with a smile on your face, and and enjoy it as best we can, and do nice things for other people as well.
Yeah, and I think obviously at this kind of moment in time as well, the way that life's been over the last year or so, I think that's a really important message as well, isn't it? I say probably now more important than ever, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to count your lucky stars sometimes. When I see other people, the place I lived in, Thailand, for a little bit, Koh Samui, it's like a ghost town, from what was a buzzing tourist attraction, beautiful place. It's literally dying on its feet. There's nobody there. Nobody can get there. They're all locked down still because they can't get vaccine over there. So we need to. I know there's been a lot spoken about. Everybody's got their opinion about government on how they've done this and how they've done that. But at least we've got the vaccines. At least life's coming back to normal. It's taken some time, but at least we seem to be getting there, to be able to get on with our lives. All right, we're not going to be able to travel too far for a little bit of time, I don't think, without jumping through too many hoops for me anyway. But there's nothing wrong with going away in the UK, is there? If the weather's all right,
No.
it's great, but we just can't guarantee the weather, and you just got to show that good British spirit of getting on with it anyway, haven't we? So,
which is what we've done, haven't we? I guess, and like you said, things are starting to, move in the right direction. We are able to do a lot more things now that we haven't been able to do. So it's been good. Fans are back in the football stadiums, which is important as well. So things are maybe getting back somewhere to where we want them to be, and let's hope that continues, because it's been a hard time, hasn't it? I think most people have struggled over the last year or so.
Yeah.
It's good that we're moving out of that now, and maybe people can start to get their lives back on track again, and move forward in a lot more positive way, which is what we all want, really, isn't it? And let's hope on the football side of it, hopefully, it'll be a good season as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on the season ahead then, just before we finish? Who do you think will win the Premier League? Man City again, do you think?
Money talks, eh? It's like a money league, isn't it? Whoever spends the most. There's only Leicester really that seem to turn that on its head a little bit, don't they? And I think they've done that through having a great spirit in the squad, and all having a togetherness. They all seem they're pulling in the same direction. They work their socks off for each other. I think he's a good manager. He's got good recruitment, because they seem to constantly get good players at low prices. And then move them on as well for profit. So they've got a good, they've got a good blueprint there, haven't they? Of competing in the top six, really, which is what people want to do. But it's obviously not that easy. Everybody wants to do that. But it does seem to generally be whoever spends the most wins the most, doesn't it, these days?
Which is a shame, because maybe good coaching and stuff like that isn't so important anymore, is it? If you've got enough money to buy the best players, it doesn't really matter who the coach is, does it? You're going to probably get good results, because players are what win your matches at the end of the day, aren't they?
Yeah, well, apparently the best coach in the world, but he's spending the most money in the world, and so it doesn't half help.
Exactly. I mean, give other coaches that much money, and I'm sure they'd get a lot better results as well, wouldn't they? Probably. So you're right. It is all about money, and it's a shame, but it is what it is. And I suppose this season's going to be probably similar again, isn't it? You're not going to probably see. You're not going to get a Wimbledon happening anymore, are we? I don't think, as we did obviously back in the day. When they won the FA Cup and in the top six regularly. It's a shame, isn't it? Really.
you can't see the bottom three that are coming up, you know, going and win the league, can you, or getting in the top six? They're going to, the three that come up are going to be there or thereabouts to go down again, aren't they? And it's kind of always seems to be the same other 3 or 4 at the bottom end that sort of try and stay up. And then you've got your middle 6 and then your top 6. It's kind of just where you're going to be in that 6 really now, rather than kind of,
it is. It is.
It's like three leagues, and it's like 3 leagues in the Premier League, 6 and 6.
And it's a shame because it never used to be like that, did it? It used to be wide open. And yeah, Liverpool used to win it a lot, didn't they, in the 80s and stuff? But, you know, teams like Watford had finished second, Southampton would finish second. And, you know, you'd get Ipswich had a good spell, didn't they, at one point as well? You know, some of these smaller clubs, obviously, Nottingham Forest as well, won the European Cup, didn't they, twice? You know, you can't see that ever happening again, can you?
Nah. I mean, there's always been one dominant team, hasn't there? There was the Liverpool for a bit, Man United for a bit, Arsenal had their bit for the Invincibles and a few years there. But it's always been kind of money really at talks, isn't it? It's always get the best players on the pitch and you've got a chance. And I think if you the old style managers have gone now, because you can't they can't get away with talking to lads like they used to. I mean, it was horrific, some of the things that used to go on in dressing rooms and managers and the way they spoke to you. But nowadays they just walk out, wouldn't they, with sit on their contract or whatever and not bother playing. Whereas we needed to play, we needed the appearance money to sort of pay our mortgages. Really, it's like a case of you put up with so much because you needed them more than they needed you, kind of thing. But it's all turned around now. Players have got all the power. We had very little power, really, because if the manager didn't fancy you, he just got rid and got somebody else in.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the Bosman thing kind of changed a little bit, didn't it? Since then, I think that it's given the players more power than they had before, and maybe players now enjoy that. I'm sure they do, but I don't think it's benefited the game in general, has it? I don't think it doesn't seem to have done.
I think the agents enjoy it even more.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, did you have agents back in your day, or that wasn't really a thing then?
No, not coming through. I mean, I think the kids at sort of 8, 9, and 10 are getting agents, aren't they? It's ridiculous, but
probably are.
No, I mean, like I said earlier, going in to see Don Howe, it was just me on my own. So you're not equipped for that leaving school, are you, to go and see somebody at that level? And they know that, you know what I mean? They take advantage of it. They don't kind of look after you or help you. They take advantage, and that's the other thing you learn through time is I'd have probably been better off doing the Eddie McGoldrick thing and playing lower levels and working my way up. Rather than, because you don't get rewarded like the lads coming through at Arsenal, they won't be getting paid the same money as the other first team lads because they've come through the youth system. That there's no loyalty that way. They want you to play, well, they won't reward you the same as signing somebody in from another team. They don't get the same money, and it takes probably until they're in their mid-20s to start getting paid. And you generally have to move. That's why a lot of them have to move, to start getting paid. You get the odd one, like Big Tony obviously got rewarded long term because he stuck in, but most of the others would have to move on to get decent pay. And it's sad, really, because they should look after them because their loyalty will be returned, but it's very few and far between, mate, isn't it, that do stay around. You can only think
you're not going to see another Tony Adams, are you? A player that stays at one club throughout his whole career. You're not going to see that anymore, are you? It's just never going to happen.
They're a handful, aren't they? Big Tony, you've got Steven Gerrard. Now I'm struggling.
Exactly. I mean, it just doesn't happen anymore, does it? And I don't think it will, because, like you said, players end up getting a better contract, or their agent will push for them to get a better contract somewhere else. And they'll just go, and you can maybe understand it to a certain degree. It's a short career, isn't it, in football?
Yeah,
and they want to try as much as they can.
I do back in the day, but now not so much because they're getting paid that much anyway. To go for another little bit more money, they're still going to be multi-millionaires. So there's only so many cars you can have, and so many bedrooms you can have empty in your house. It's literally, I don't get it now for them pushing for moves. If they're playing and they're enjoying it, then why keep moving on? But what I'm saying is, back in the day, you had to move. You had to get paid well. You had to move because that your your team that you brought through with don't look after you properly, or didn't. Sorry.
I think that's the same now, though, because you've got a player like, say, Bukayo Saka at Arsenal. His contract will be a lot less than, say, the players that they just bought. That Ben White, who's just come from Brighton, he'll be on a lot more money because he's just been signed for £50 million, and he'll be on a better contract than Bukayo Saka. And you're right, that's the wrong way round, really, isn't it? Because Saka's come through the youth system. He's shown his loyalty to the club. He's now one of the best players. And yes, I think he's had an improved contract to what he was on, but he won't be nowhere near what, say Aubameyang's on, for example, or some of them other players. It's just crazy. Yeah, it should be. I think it should. The younger players they will, like you said, they'll move on. And then where's the system going to be? If all the players in the youth team, they want to play in the first team, but if they're not going to get rewarded for that, they'll end up, like you said, moving on somewhere else. And I think that's happening now. Probably even more, because there's going to be more of a gap now, probably in the what the contracts say Saka's on to what the top earners are on. Maybe even from your day, there probably wasn't that much of a gap as there is now. I mean, it would have been obviously a big gap. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's wrong, isn't it? Completely. But I don't know what I think whole of football needs to have a look at itself, doesn't it? And change the way it's running, because you've seen that what's going on at Barcelona at the moment, it can't be sustained forever. Things are going to have to change, aren't they?
And the sad thing is the lower league clubs that have sort of the lifeblood of, English football are dying on their arse. They can't survive, especially when they've had no fans. That's what that's all they survived on, was their income from the gate. And without that, they've had to lay players off, and it's just wrong, really, when there's so much money washing about that it's not filtered down a little bit through the leagues. But that's the world, and it's all money talks and all that sort of thing. So
yeah, it is, and it's a shame that it's affected football so much that it has, really. And there's such a the haves and have-nots that we've got now is such a gap, and it's a shame, because that's not really what football was designed for, is it? Really, it wasn't designed for that. You still got the FA Cup and the great competition that is, and the cup shocks. Obviously, you was a part of one, and there's been so many great cup shocks over the years, and they're going to get less and less, aren't they? Because the smaller clubs aren't going to be able to compete with the Premier League clubs, are they? Ever? And it's even on a one-off game, and I think it's a shame.
No, and it's also a shame that a lot of them don't play their first team, isn't it? I think the Premier League sometimes they don't treat it as a proper competition anymore. It's like now it's behind sort of finishing fourth in the Premier League. They don't surely you want to go and win the cup, don't you? Like, for the fans and for your own trophy cabinet. But I don't know, it's all kind of different. Anyway, we sound like two bitter old men, don't we?
Yeah, but I mean, it's it's just, I suppose, when we've come through an era maybe when things were a lot different, and I suppose we've seen a lot of the changes, haven't we? Which haven't always been for the best, and I guess it just sometimes it does upset you a little bit. It certainly upsets me when I see what's happened to football, because it isn't the same as it was. It's not the game I fell in love with back in the sort of 1970s when I was growing up and stuff like that. And it is a shame, but we're not going to change it, unfortunately, are we? It's what it is. Modern football is here to stay, and we're just going to have to accept it, really, aren't we? And hopefully enjoy it as much as we can, because I guess that's all we can do, isn't it?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Some great information that you gave us there, some great stories as well. And obviously, make sure that you do buy Jon's book. I'll say the link will be in the video below, so click on that and get involved in that. It's going to be really good. And also, as well, I'll put a link to your website on there, because you've got these events coming up, haven't you, in August and stuff like that, the books events.
Yeah.
So, I know are they all in the sort of Midlands, are they? Or is there anywhere else, or are you just sort of sticking local?
Well, I've got basically doing one in my hometown of Corby in September, and then one at Kidderminster, and then a couple around Wolverhampton area that, where I know a few people, really, just to try and have a good night out, really, and hopefully shift a few books, just to I ordered 1,000 and I've got 750 left in my house, so I need to try and get rid of some, Otherwise I'll be having a bonfire soon.
No, definitely don't do that. Definitely don't do that. I mean, hopefully we can shift a few from the back of this video for you. It'd be nice. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of Arsenal fans that will be really interested in reading your story as well, which will be great. So I'm sure we'll hopefully help you on that side of it as well. But definitely don't burn them, because that'll be a waste.
Not yet. Yeah.
No.
All right.
I said, thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I say, obviously, I'll put all the links into the video so people can find the book, find you, and stuff like that. And hopefully we'll be able to speak again, maybe in the future.
Love that, mate. Thanks ever so much, and let's hope Arsenal have a good season, mate.
Let's hope so. I'm not confident, if I'm honest, but you never know. We might surprise a few people. Be nice.
Keep the faith. Keep the faith.
Yeah, we'll have to, won't we? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on.
Cheers,
It's been
mate.
a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Take care.
Thanks a lot. Cheers,
Bye.
mate. See
Bye-bye.
ya. Bye. So that was Jon Purdie there. Fantastic guest to have on the channel. Brilliant chat that was as well. What a great guy. He was a great player as well back in the day. I do remember him playing in the youths and the reserves back in the early part of the 1980s. So the link to the book and to his website to find the book signings are down below in the description. So please check out that. Please buy the book. It's really, really good. Some great stories there of his time at Arsenal and, of course, beyond that as well, and that great FA Cup goal that we've talked about as well. So please do that as well. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Please subscribe to the channel as well. I do like to do these things as well, get some ex-Arsenal players on the channel for a chat. So if you enjoy that sort of thing, please subscribe. Please like as well. Stay tuned to the channel because there's loads of stuff coming up. The Tuesday Club, of course, will be coming out tomorrow. And then, of course, we'll be building up towards the opening Premier League game against Brentford. Some great stuff on that coming up as well. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for your support. Please like, share and subscribe. And, of course, in the meantime, as always, thanks to Jon. And I say buy his book. Come on, you Gunners.